The woman's gloved hand trembled as she pushed through the saloon doors, black silk catching the amber light like a shadow seeking sanctuary. Her veil hung heavy, obscuring everything but the pale curve of her jaw and lips pressed thin with secrets. Every conversation died. Every card game froze. Even the piano player's fingers stumbled over keys that had never failed him before. "Whiskey," she said, voice barely above a whisper, yet it cut through the silence like a blade through cotton. Behind the bar, Samuel Crenshaw's weathered hands stilled on the glass he'd been polishing for the past 5 minutes. 30 years of pouring drinks for drifters, outlaws and broken souls had taught him to read people like scripture. But this woman, she made his blood run cold for reasons he couldn't name. The black dress hugged her frame with morning's precision, every fold speaking of grief, every button a testament to loss. Widow's weeds, they called it. The kind of costume grief wore when it wanted the world to keep its distance. But Samuel had seen true widows before, had served them whiskey while they clutched faded photographs and spoke their dead husbands' names like prayers. This woman clutched nothing but her composure. He poured the whiskey, amber liquid catching the gaslight like liquid gold. When she reached for it, her sleeve pulled back just enough to reveal an inch of unmarked skin. No tan line where a wedding ring should have left its ghost. No pale indent of metal worn through years of marriage and love. "She ain't no widow," Samuel whispered to himself, words barely forming breath. But her black veil said otherwise. The woman drained the whiskey in one smooth motion, set the glass down with deliberate care, and placed 2 silver coins on the scarred wood. Too much for a single drink. Not enough for what she was really buying. Silence, sanctuary, time. "Thank you," she said, turning toward the darkest corner of the saloon where shadows gathered like conspirators. Samuel watched her settle at a table meant for men who preferred their business conducted away from prying eyes. She folded her hands, spine straight as judgment, and waited, for what he couldn't say. But the way she sat, alert ready, told him this woman hadn't come to Perdition Creek to grieve. She'd come to disappear. Or maybe to be found. Section 2. Moral Decision. 3 days passed before Samuel worked up the courage to approach her corner table. She arrived each evening at sunset, ordered the same whiskey, left the same silver coins. Never spoke to another soul, never removed the veil, but Samuel noticed things others missed. The way her eyes tracked every entrance, how her right hand rested always near the slit in her dress where something small and sharp might hide. "You expectin' someone?" he asked, setting down her drink without being asked. Those hidden eyes found his. "Aren't we all? Some more than others." Samuel pulled out the opposite chair, aged wood creaking under his weight. "Name's Samuel. I own this place. I know who you are." The words hit him like a physical blow. Customers around them continued their conversations, but Samuel felt the world narrow to this moment, this table, this woman who somehow knew him. "Do I know you?" She reached up slowly, fingers finding the edge of her veil. For a heartbeat, Samuel thought she might lift it. Instead, she traced its border, like worry beads. "You knew my sister." Sister. The word unlocked something in Samuel's memory, sent him searching through faces from years past. How many women had passed through his doors? How many stories had he served alongside whiskey and beer? What was her name? Catherine. The name struck him like lightning. Catherine with the auburn hair and laugh that could charm coins from a miser's purse. Catherine who'd worked the tables upstairs for 3 months before disappearing with a traveling preacher who promised her redemption. Catherine who'd been running from something even then, though she'd never said what. Catherine Murphy, Samuel breathed. Sweet girl, had troubles, but who doesn't? Haven't seen her in, must be 5 years now. 6 years 2 months 3 days. The precision of it chilled him. She's dead. The word fell like a stone into still water. Murdered, along with her husband and 2 children. Samuel's hand found his whiskey glass, gripped it like an anchor. The preacher, the preacher. Her voice carried no emotion, but her stillness spoke volumes. "They found the bodies last spring. Catherine had written my name in blood on the floorboards before she died." The saloon's noise faded to white sound. Samuel stared at this woman who claimed to be Catherine's sister, this creature of black silk and hidden vengeance. Because that's what this was. He could smell it on her like smoke. "What do you want from me?" "The preacher's coming back to Perdition Creek tomorrow night. I know because I've been following him for 8 months. She leaned forward, black veil stirring with her breath. "I need to know if you'll stand aside when the time comes." Samuel's moral compass spun wildly. The law said murder was wrong, regardless of reason, but justice, real justice, sometimes wore different clothes than the law. He thought of Catherine's laughter, her gentle hands, the way she'd flinched whenever men raised their voices too loud. Outside, hoofbeats thundered past the saloon, heading toward the church at the far end of town. The woman in black turned toward the sound, her entire body coiling like a snake preparing to strike. Section 3. Danger arrives. The church bell began tolling at precisely 9 o'clock, each note hanging in the desert air like a funeral dirge. Samuel stood behind his bar, polishing the same glass for the 100th time, watching the woman in black through the saloon's dusty windows. She hadn't moved from her corner table in 6 hours, hadn't touched her whiskey, hadn't spoken another word, but her eyes never left the church. "Samuel." The voice came from behind him, smooth as snake oil and twice as poisonous. "Been a long time." Samuel's blood froze. He turned slowly, the glass slipping from his fingers to shatter on the floor. Standing in his doorway like death itself was Reverend Marcus Thorne, tall, silver-haired, wearing the same black coat and practiced smile that had charmed Catherine away from Perdition Creek 6 years ago. "Reverend." Samuel's voice caught in his throat. Behind Thorne, 3 men lingered in the shadows, hard men with hard eyes and the kind of casual violence that came from years of doing whatever paid best. "Heard there's been some unusual visitors in town lately." Thorne's pale eyes swept the saloon, cataloging every face, every expression. When they found the woman in black, they lingered, someone asking questions about old friends. The saloon had gone silent again, but this time the silence carried teeth. Every man present could smell the danger rolling off Thorne and his companions like heat from a forge. This wasn't a social call, this was a reckoning. "Don't know what you mean," Samuel said, but his eyes betrayed him, flickering toward the corner table. Thorne smiled, the expression never reaching his eyes. "Course you don't. You always were terrible at lying, Samuel. Catherine used to say, 'Don't.'" The word came from the corner, cutting through the air like a whip crack. The woman in black rose slowly, her movements liquid grace and barely contained fury. "Don't speak her name." Thorne turned toward her, that practiced smile widening. "Well now, the mysterious widow everyone's been whispering about. Funny thing, I knew a lot of widows in my line of work, made quite a few myself." His hand rested casually on the gun at his hip. "But you don't carry yourself like a woman touched by grief." "No," she agreed, reaching up to finally lift the black veil from her face. "I carry myself like a woman touched by rage." The face revealed could have been Catherine's twin, same auburn hair, same green eyes, same delicate bone structure. But where Catherine had been softness and laughter, this woman was steel and judgment. Her beauty was the kind that cut, that promised retribution for wrongs committed in darkness. "Maria Santos," Thorne breathed, recognition dawning. "Catherine's little sister. Last I heard you were in Mexico living the quiet life." "Last you heard wrong." Maria's hand moved to the slit in her dress, fingers closing around something hidden there. "I've been hunting you, Marcus, following your trail of broken women and murdered families. Did you really think Catherine was the only one who'd fight back?" Samuel's heart hammered against his ribs. The moment balanced on a knife's edge, ready to spill blood across his clean floors. Outside, more hoofbeats approached, too many to be coincidence. Thorne's smile finally died. "Boys," he said quietly to his men, "I think it's time we had a private conversation with the lady." The church bell tolled again, counting down to midnight, and Maria Santos smiled back with all the warmth of a winter grave. Section 4. Human Connection. "Wait." Samuel stepped from behind the bar, hands raised but steady. The broken glass crunched under his boots like bones. "There's something you need to know first, Reverend." Thorne's cold eyes shifted to him. This doesn't concern you, old man. It does when it happened in my town. Samuel's voice found strength he'd forgotten he possessed. See, I knew Catherine better than you think, better than you ever did. Maria's fierce gaze softened slightly, confusion flickering across her features. Samuel reached into his vest pocket slowly, withdrew a folded piece of paper, yellowed with age. His hands shook as he opened it, revealing Catherine's familiar handwriting. She left this for you, he said to Maria. The night before she ran off with him, asked me to hold it, said if her sister ever came looking. Maria's composure cracked. She reached for the letter like it might burn her, and Samuel saw the woman beneath the vengeance, young, heartbroken, carrying 6 years of grief and rage. What's it say? Thorne demanded, but his voice carried less certainty now. Maria's eyes scanned the page, and Samuel watched 26 years of memories play across her face. Catherine laughing at his bar, Catherine crying over the upstairs room's single window, Catherine pressing this letter into his palm with trembling fingers. Maria, she read aloud, tears making tracks through the dust on her cheeks. If you're reading this, it means I'm dead, and you've come for justice. Don't, please, Ermana, don't let my mistakes destroy your life too. I chose to go with Marcus because I was tired of running from our father's debts. I thought I could change him, maybe save myself. I was wrong about everything except one thing. You are the strongest person I know, strong enough to walk away, strong enough to live. The saloon held its breath. Even Thorne's men shifted uncomfortably, hands easing away from their weapons. I hid money, Maria continued, in the place where we used to hide from Papa's belt. Enough to start over somewhere new. Promise me you'll take it and run. Promise me you won't become what he is. Te amo, Ermana, always. Maria folded the letter carefully, pressed it to her heart. When she looked up, Samuel saw the steel returning to her eyes, but tempered now with something else. Love, forgiveness, the kind of strength that came not from revenge, but from choosing to honor the dead by living. She was wrong about one thing, Maria said quietly. I'm not strong enough to walk away. Yes, you are. Samuel moved closer, ignoring Thorne's growled warning. Catherine saw it in you even then, the ability to choose love over hate, light over darkness. Touching Thorne interrupted, his patience finally fraying. But dead is dead, and debts are debts. Catherine cost me money when she died, and somebody's got to pay up. Maria's hand found the knife at her thigh, but Samuel caught her wrist. Not like this, he whispered, not in blood. Catherine wouldn't want that stain on your soul. Outside the hoofbeats had stopped. Through the window, Samuel could see torches moving, the sheriff and his deputies, drawn by reports of trouble at the saloon. The moment hung suspended, waiting for Maria's choice. Section 5, full resolution plus epilogue. You're right, Maria said, her voice steady as stone. She released the knife, let her hand fall to her side. Catherine wouldn't want blood on my hands, but she would want justice. Thorne laughed, the sound harsh in the stillness. Justice? From who? Sheriff Taylor's been in my pocket for. Not Sheriff Taylor, Maria interrupted. She reached into her dress again, but this time withdrew a folded document bearing official seals. Marshal Williams from the territorial capital. Turns out when you kill enough families, someone eventually notices. The saloon doors swung open, spilling armed lawmen into the amber light. At their head stood a grizzled man with a marshal's star, and eyes like flint. Behind him came a woman Samuel didn't recognize, until she spoke. Hello, Marcus. The voice was Catherine's, but aged, weathered. The woman stepped into the light, revealing auburn hair streaked with gray and green eyes that had seen too much. Surprised, Thorne staggered backward as if struck. Catherine, but you're dead. Catherine smiled, but it held no warmth. Nearly. Your men were thorough, but not quite thorough enough. It took me 2 years to heal, 4 more to gather evidence. Turns out, federal marshals take a dim view of preachers who murder entire families for their land. Samuel's world tilted sideways. The sisters embraced, and he saw the family resemblance clearly now. Not twins, but siblings marked by shared pain and unbreakable bonds.
I've been tracking him too, Catherine explained to Maria, building a case, gathering witnesses. When I heard you were following the same trail, she touched Maria's face gently. I knew I had to reach you before you did something we'd both regret. Marshal Williams stepped forward, iron shackles gleaming in his hands. Marcus Thorne, by the authority of the United States government, you're under arrest for murder, fraud and conspiracy. Your friends too. The arrest happened quickly, professionally. Thorne's practiced charm crumbled as the reality of capture set in. His men went quietly, recognizing the futility of resistance. As the marshals led them away, Catherine turned to Samuel. Thank you for keeping my letter, for stopping my sister from becoming what I almost did. Samuel nodded, throat too tight for words. He watched the sisters walk out together, Catherine's arm around Maria's shoulders, both of them finally free from the shadows that had haunted them. Epilogue: years later, when traveling salesmen asked about the mysterious woman in black who'd once graced his establishment, Samuel would pour their whiskey and tell them the truth, that sometimes the dead rise not for vengeance, but for love, that justice doesn't always come from the barrel of a gun, but from the courage to choose mercy over murder. Catherine and Maria Santos opened a school for children in Santa Fe, teaching letters and numbers to those who'd never had the chance to learn. They never married, never spoke of Perdition Creek, never wore black again, and on quiet evenings, when the desert wind carried memories across the miles, Samuel would raise a glass to the corner table where it all began, where two sisters learned that the strongest weapon against darkness isn't hatred, but the decision to step into the light. The saloon doors still swing in that desert wind, carrying whispers of the night when love proved stronger than revenge.